In this session, we will talk about the very interesting point that is about the dark side of leadership, right? Destructive leadership. So, is it also possible that is the leader is destructive? So, yes, there are the certain practices which will be classifying them on the dark side of leadership. We will talk about and understand first what is the destructive leadership is there, destructive leadership in different domains, toxic triangle, about the destructive leaders, suspectable followers and conducive environment. Now, so far we have understood in the leadership is there are three factors: leaders, followers and environment, right. So, when we talk about the destructive leadership, then in that case there are suspectable followers also. What are those followers and how they are getting classified into this particular class, that we will discuss in detail. Preparing against the destructive leadership, toxic to transformative triangle, and then as usual we will be talking about the research papers, case study and the book recommendations. First we have to understand destructive leadership, because you see many times whenever we argue with the leadership, many people are giving the examples of such leaders and they say, is this leadership? Because they are doing the harm to the society, and if they are doing the harm to the society, but they are able to influence the followers, and if they are able to influence the followers, then theoretically we will say they are leaders. But then what type of leaders they are? So, they are the destructive leaders, right. With individuals who are effective at building teams and getting results through others. So, here also you have to keep in mind they are very effective, right. So, therefore, they also create the teams. So far we have discussed about the leaders, leaders are having the followers, followers are having the teams, and then team is led by the leader and goal has been achieved. So, therefore, they are getting the results also. So, then the leadership process is complete, but who obtain results that are morally or ethically challenged. So, dear friends, here is the goal is very important. If somebody thinks that is the by destructive leadership he is able to occupy the position in the organization, right, and therefore he thinks that is I am very much influential and therefore I am a successful leader, but that is not right. In what context it is not right, that we will see. It is not the question of the morally or ethically challenge, right. So, somebody may say I do not bother, I do not bother about the moral, right. So, then in that case what will be there? Then how that leadership can be stopped? So, or undermine the organizational or community success. So, therefore, in that leadership, no, it is such an addiction, destructive leadership is also an addiction, that they do not bother about the organizational or community success also. For example, the Hitler is there, and you know about all this about the Hitler. Only 8% of the Fortune 1000 executive directors rate their leadership capacity as excellent, while 47 rated their leadership capacity as fair to poor is there. So, therefore, in that case you will find that is only 8% of in the Fortune 1000, only 8%. And they have talked about that is yes, our leadership is excellent, right. But 47% they have rated themselves from the fair to poor category, and therefore, we can understand that is the, if this is the situation, then how we will be having this particular concept of the effective leadership and leadership into the organization, and it is very good. No, it is excellent is only 8% is there. Now, whenever we want to understand the exactly the theoretical definition or concept of the destructive leadership, it is the process of influence between the flawed, toxic or the ineffective leaders, right, and therefore, they are the flawed, right. So, that flawed and toxic are there, right. So, it is making the difference. So, when we are talking about that is the what is the goal. So, then we will call it is a flaw style of leadership is there. Susceptible followers and conducive environments. which unfolds over time and unbalance. Culminates in destructive group are the organizational outcomes that comprise the quality of life for internal and external constituents, and therefore it is becoming very important. That is the whatever we are talking about, the quality of life, right. And every time we talk about work life balance, we talk about the quality of work life, we talk about the quality of life. Nowadays we want work life enrichment is to be there, and therefore it is the external and internal constituents, and detract from their group focus goals or purposes are there, right. So, therefore, you will find that is the it is not the right strategy to adopt this type of the leadership. Another definition is given is a process in which over a longer period of time the activities, experiences and or relationships of an individual or the members of a group are repeatedly influenced by their supervisor, definitely, in a way that is perceived as hostile and or the obstructive is there, right. So, it is also very important time period. What is the time period is there, and in the time period if that particular relationship of an individual of the members, right, then if it is the repeatedly influence, then you will find that is these followers, they are becoming the hostile and the obstructive is there. Some of the leaders are among the most infamous in history and include the Alexander the Great, right, then Genghis Khan, Saddam Hussein, Napoleon Bonaparte, Adolf Hitler and the Joseph Stalin is there. And no one could argue about whether these individuals had a major impact on their countries and societies. So, they have been the leaders, but their collective influence killed hundreds of millions of the innocent people is there, and therefore, in that case we will find that is becoming the destructive leaders is there. In the case of these military settings, the massacres at Mali, Serbia, Bosnia, Croatia, Rwanda, Darfur and Syria show that destructive leadership also occurs in military setting. In the spirit of the seeking revenge or ethnic cleansing, military commanders will rally their troops to kill everyone in particular villages and the towns, even those who are not military combatants, right. Like here in India, when we are talking about the Jallianwala Bagh Kand, right. So, which was the massacre. So, therefore, in that case in General Dyer, who ordered the Jallianwala Bagh the massacre of April 13, 1999, was a destructive leader in the British army during British Raj before the independence is there. So, therefore, in that case the following the order of the leader, right. So, then the leader says that is the it is the influential because there is a but what is the goal or objective, that is becoming very important. So, we are having the destructive religions in these leadership in different domains, like the religions are there and to highly charismatic religious leaders who develop the cult like followings and lead their adherents to commit suicide, right. Finance recession of 2008 to 2010 can be partially attributed to a number of destructive leaders in the financial service industries. Many greedy bank and insurance executives did a good job of building teams and generating profits, but the profits were gained by the cooking the books, selling financial products that were doomed to fail, right. So, if this type of the practices are there by these industries financial practices, then definitely we will classify that is this type of the leadership will be the destructive leadership. The problem was so widespread that it almost caused the collapse of the entire global economy and therefore, these leaders financial problems, you see, that is the it has created such an impact that is it has collapsed the entire global economy was there. You can see that is how the destructive leadership can even influence so highly. Organizations, destructive leaderships can occur at a variety of levels in organizations. Sometimes first line supervisors, middle level managers and executives who disagree with company policies and strategies will motivate their followers to pursue course of action that are not aligned with the organizational interest even. So, even then case when then it is not related to the organizational interest, then definitely those policies and strategies that which have been motivated, and many times we see the closure of the organizations. Why the closure of the organization? That is that they could not run the organization properly, and the decisions were have been found wrong, and so therefore, in that case we will say that is destructive leaders. These actions and their subsequent results often lead to poor customer service, duplicate efforts, high levels of the team conflict, and ultimately that is the suboptimal financial performance is there. And these outcomes are expected. What will happen when the leader is in such a destructive position? So, who will take care of the customers? Nobody will take care of the customers, right. There will be the high level of the team efforts will be and the ultimately the suboptimal financial performance will be there, right. So, team conflicts will be there. So, if high level of the team conflicts will be there, then the and if the performance is high level of performance into destructive style, then definitely ultimately that is the financial performance has to go down, and when it will be financial performance will go down, then organization survival will be in the question. Although these leaders and followers may believe they are doing the right thing, their actions harm their organizations. Now, here we have to focus on this particular point. So, question arises in destructive leadership, the intention. Intention is there or intention is not there, that is very subjective. But the ultimately goal, because what is the leadership when we talk about that collective efforts to achieve the goal of the organization, but the ultimately that result is not the achievement of the goal rather than to harm the organization. And therefore, this destructive leadership style in this different domain, whether it is the intentional or not intentional, ultimately results will be that is very negative. Now, a beautiful concept to understand this destructive leadership is the toxic triangle. So, here destructive leaders are there. So, they are charismatic, right. So, in acting in their own self interest. So, destructive leaders are those who are acting in the self interest and not in the interest of the organization. So, but they are charismatic, need of power. So, they are in highly need of power, and for the remaining in the power they go for this type of the destructive practices. Narcissism is there, negative life theme is there, and ideology is this to destruct. Right. Susceptible followers are the conformers and the colluders. Conformers are the unmet needs, right. So, therefore, in that case whatever is their need was there, they are not able to gain that fulfillment of that need. Low self evaluation. Why they are not involved into the positive act? Because they are having the low self evaluation. Self evaluation is very low. So, I will be important to the organization if I will create the problem to the organization, and that is the philosophy of the susceptible followers are there. So, the susceptible followers they will create they are highlighted in the organization, right. People are scared from them, but why they behave like this? Because they are having this so low self evaluation. They are not becoming the leader by performance as a role models and doing something good in the organization. Then the low maturity is there. So, that their understanding itself, it is a questionable. This type of these followers, they are immature. They are not able to understand that is the what will be the consequence of their act and behavior in overall organization, and ultimately it the organization, society, nation all will suffer, right, whatever position they are. But because of their low maturity and low self evaluation, they are not performing, they are involved into the negative act. So, co-leaders are the ambition, highly ambitious about self, similar worldview is there. So, therefore, in that case they join with that particular view, and the bad value systems are there, and as a result of which they are becoming the susceptible followers. The third in the leadership, third element or the dimension is, that is the conducive environments. Conducive environment is the context that promote the toxic leadership, right. So, instability, if the organization is having the instability and they are not able to perform consistency in their growth, so there will be instability will be there, and as a result of which they are not able to perform. Perceived the threat, that is maybe the social or environmental factors are there, and on basis of this they will be having these perceived the threats are there. Then the cultural values are there. What actually, in fact, whenever we are talking about these bad values of the susceptible followers, which will be creating the organization culture. If this type of the followers are more, no. So, what will be the value system in that organization? In organization system, that culture will be developed, not to work, create the damage to the organization, or the negative decisions, or the self interest decisions. So, this will be the cultural values, lack of checks and balances. So, therefore, in that case there will be no control, organization is not having the control over this followers, and the in the organization process there is not a proper checks and balances are there. So, as a result what will happen, an ineffective institution will be developed. So, these points are discussed in the details, that is when I was talking about, no, they are charismatic, right. So, then our outgoing and charismatic are there, they are engaging the personalities, and that is also they have that much of influence, dear friends, that is they are able to influence those personalities, so that those followers they join them, right, and they are socially skilled. This is also very interesting, people voluntarily join them, and that is why they are part of the leaders, it is not forcefully, and they advocate the popular ideologies. And what type of talk they will have, or the speech they will have, which will be more acceptable. So, therefore, they advocate the popular ideologies, popular ideologies are there, people accept that. But why they do so? For the need of power. They are highly ambitious, position of power, and demonstrate focus, energy and stamina towards goal, and therefore, you see their stamina is very high, energy level is very high, and therefore, they move towards the goal. This is also the influential, that is why they are leaders, right. Unfortunately, they are destructive leaders, but what is required to be leader? And focus is required, goal is required, energetic is required, stamina is required. So, these leaders are also having all these the focus, energy and stamina. Have inflated the views of self importance. So, people they take them as a leader. Possess tremendous self esteem and self efficacy. There is no one like me on this earth, and therefore, that is the tremendous self esteem is there. Liking for self is too much, that is I am different from all. Nobody is here in this organization like me, and if I will leave the organization, this organization has to go to dogs. So, therefore, that much of self esteem and self efficacy is here. Ignore inputs from others. So, autocratic style is there, not to listen others, no suggestions, whatever they think it is okay. Negative life themes are there. Experience significant challenges, traumatic events in formative periods. This is also is the most of the leaders are having either their childhood or their young age of this destructive leader that has become the very challenging and struggleful, and as a result of which they develop the value system to hate others and then they will be creating the chaos in the society. Weave a narrative of overcoming the hardship or long odds are there. So, therefore, why they are so much appreciated? Because they have come with the very much hardship in life, and long odds situations are where there, they struggle with that, they win over those situations, and now they are into the positions. The ideology of hate have inflated views of the self importance, possess tremendous self esteem and self efficacy, and ignore the input from others, right. So, this ideology is there. So, these point number 3 and point number 5, the sub factors are same, but basically it is both are having, that is the ideology of hate is there, and therefore, in that case they are becoming the destructive leaders. Now, when we talk about the followers, conformers they passively permit the destructive leadership, unmet needs and the poor self evaluation and immaturity is there, and therefore, this type of this the people those are internally less confident, they are going as a conformers. Co-leaders are there, actively assist destructive leadership, that is a personal ambitions, the congruent values of belief are there, and the unsolicited values they are having. Now, these conducive environments, now we have given the example in the previous slides about that is a financial leadership, destructive leadership is there. When economic recession was there, so many banks and financial institutions they have created the problems. So, that is because of the instability, because it was economic recession, and in that economic recession there was instability. So, that periods of change or uncertainty, so they got the opportunity, destructive leaders, to make the harm to the nation, and need for the quick decisive action was there, and that time because of instability, so quick decisions are required. So, every decision is not well vetted, right, and as a result of which immediately decisions are taken. So, there will this type of this environment is there. So, many times that leads into the destructive outcome. They perceive the threat, external threats, right, especially the competitors and survival. Common enemies are there, and for those who are the market shareholders of their business, they become common enemies, and there is a need for protection is there, and therefore, because of this instability, environment is not supporting, there are the threats are there. So, they need the protection for this from this environment. They are the absence of checks and balances, emerging organizations are there, and the poor institutional oversight is there, and organization is also not having the long term vision, right, and as a result of which there is no checks and balances. The collectivist cultures is there, those who are the followers here. When we talk about the types of followers, then the types of followers are the those followers who are susceptible. Then the high power distance is there, right, in the organization. So, in spite of the short structure and horizontal structure, the organizations are having the high power distance is there. So, that is creating the tall structure in the organization. So, there is a need for stability and security is there in the organization, and as we have seen, these are all outcomes of the instability in the previous slide. So, there is a need for the stability is there. So, destructive leadership is associated with the various negative outcomes. Follower resistance will be there, view of the leaders, negative view of the job, decreased motivation, dedication and satisfaction, negative view of the individual followers, stress, well-being and performance is there, right. So, therefore, these followers will be under the stress, right, and these the decreased motivation, right. So, therefore, in that case dedication and the satisfaction decrease, it will be decreased. Negative view of the organization is turnover and the counterproductive work behavior is there, and therefore, in that case it is becoming the towards the more non-performers rather than the performers. So, how in this at some point you may benefit from preparing for this challenge to do, you may want to. So, therefore, how to prepare against the destructive leadership. So, increase your awareness. Leadership assessments, performance appraisals are generally employees satisfaction, right, and the survey may be helpful to flag leaders that could become destructive leaders. So, in the beginning itself you see whenever there are these type of these decisions are going on, and the leader of the leader for these destructive leadership is there. So, immediately there should be in the organization, there should be checks and balances, there should be the counterparts, so that they can identify and they can flag the leaders, identify the leaders, flag the leaders that could become the destructive leaders. That is, if this type of the officers, this type of the section heads, this type of the supervisors, if they have been allowed to grow, so one day they will take the key position in the organization as a destructive leader. So, have a plan. A clear response to destructive leadership when it is identified, focusing not only on the leader, but also supporting employees as suggested. It is also very beautiful point is there here. So, it is not that is when you observe that is a particular person is negatively working in the organization. So, do not focus only on that particular leader, right, but also focus on those employees, those who are supporting this type of the leader is there, right. So, then only you will be able to break that chain. Know thyself. Leaders should consider how their behavior and tactics may affect staff. In addition, leadership teams may benefit from discussion of acceptable and unacceptable behavior. What type of behavior are you willing to tolerate amongst colleagues at the leadership level? So, many times what happens? No, that is the whenever we say that is the always those who are tolerating this type of their behavior, they are also more responsible in the organization to promote this type of destructive leadership. Is this a type of behavior you would like imitate throughout the organization? If yes, then that is not destructive, but if it is no, that is a sign of the destructive leadership. So, consider your context. Addressing the behavior of the destructive leader is just a start. Consider the aspects of your organizational environment or culture that may enable or allow destructive leadership to take place, as suggested in the models, right, as we have discussed above. Now, toxic to transformative triangle is there. So, whenever we are talking about the susceptible followers, destructive leaders and conducive environment, that is a toxic triangle to the transformative triangle, right. How we can take out this particular problem and our organization becomes the a constructive organization. So, positive environment, right. So, therefore, in spite of the conducive environment, there will be positive environment will be there, and value based leadership. Value based leadership is required, so that is in spite of the susceptible followers, you will have the capable followers with you. That the three elements of toxic triangle can be deliberately conveyed to transformative triangle, which would lead to a constructive leadership rather than the destructive leadership is there. So, in spite of the destructive leaders, constructive leaders are required. In spite of the susceptible followers, value based capable followers are required, and in spite of the destructive leaders, that is the value based leadership is required. So, then in that case we will have that transformative triangle. How to create that positive environment? Empower the people, transformational and transactional balance is required, diplomacy, this type of this positive environment, respectful and candid forum, and the active listening is required. Value based leadership will be character by the leader itself, reasonable and restrained standard based approach, superordinate thoughts and actions, so that the vision is created, selfless intent, and the close match between the espoused and enacted values are there. Capable followers are there, that is the upstanders, lower level leadership, then the penchant for the proper descent, unity of efforts, and equal loyalty to mission, leadership and organization. When we will be following this type of these transformative triangle, then definitely we can come out from the destructive leadership to the transformative leadership is there, and the triangle will be there. These are the research papers as usual, which is the advice destructive leadership behavior, a definition and the conceptual model, right, and to propose a definition of destructive leadership behavior. In this paper also it has been given within his research field, and to propose a conceptual model of leadership behavior that incorporates the notion that a destructive leader may simultaneously show both destructive and constructive behavior also. This is also possible, interestingly, that is the leader may show the both destructive and constructive is there. Ultimately what we understand, that is there should be a continuous observations in the organization, whatever decisions are taken by the leader from the junior level to the top level, and therefore we can in journey from the entering into the organization, reaching to the CEO position or the leadership position, that journey has to be observed systematically, and if it is destructive it should be stopped there only. So, by extending the two dimensions to include destructive behavior, authors propose a model that captures both constructive and destructive leadership is there. So, anti-subordinate behavior is there and pro-subordinate behavior is there. So, pro-subordinate behavior and a pro-organizational behavior is there. So, then it will be the constructive leadership is there. When the pro-organizational behavior is there, but anti-subordinate behavior is there, then that we will say tyrannical leadership is there. When the anti-organizational behavior is there and anti-subordinate behavior is also there, that is a derailed leadership. When anti-organizational leadership is there, behavior is there, but the pro-subordinate behavior is there, supportive disloyal leadership is there, right. So, you are supporting the your subordinates, but against the organization. So, disloyal will be there. So, by this study we can go, and this is the case study of the story of Vijay Mallya, right, a multinational conglomerate of over 60 companies. Lifestyle and his popular term is called the king of the good times. Launched Kingfisher, and then airline had acquired entire 46% of the right, and then but we find that is as a non-performing assets. Kingfisher has been for non-performing asset in the business, and unlike his other two major businesses, the spirits and the beer segments, which were running smoothly under the managing directors, airlines had no long-term CEO, right. So, therefore, in this case we will find that is the failure of the organization because of the destructive style of the leadership practices by the leader is there. So, and dysfunctional organization and the therapeutic approach, destructive leaders and the dysfunctional organizations. Then this is a book which talk about these particular the concepts and the practices by the many leaders. And for your further studies, these are the references. Thank you.